No
That's their
smile.
act.
That's right.
Yeah.
Must be nice to be a Pleasant Hill City Council.
Rescue just went
Yeah.
last.
They have no, two running and that no stress. What else? She told us.
All right, it's 5:30. Welcome to the October 7th, 2021 Southe's Polk School Board meeting. Karen, can I get the roll call?
Handy,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
Fisher, Nave, Slings,
Here.
Crowell,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
All right, looks like we have a quorum. Go ahead and call this meeting to order then. Agenda adoption 1B. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Dr. Let make any changes?
No, there are not.
Having no changes. Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes. All right, 1C, district vision and mission. Do I have a volunteer?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live, success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you very much. All right, 1D, this is time for public comments. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the board for anything, whether it's on the agenda or not, this is the time to do so. Be granted 2 minutes. If there's a large group out there tonight that wants to speak, you can have 5 minutes. So anybody out there that would like to speak? Nobody? We do have one written one that came in that I'll go ahead and read. It's from Jennifer Southcott from 3303 Southeast Powers Drive in Runnels. Thanks for taking the time to read my comment. My name is Jennifer Southcott, and I'm a third-generation Southeast Polk graduate. I have one child in the district. My grandfather's name was Dor Beatty, and he was a member of the very first Board of Education at Southeast Polk ever. My mother worked for the high school for years, so the short story is that the district is very important to my family. We go way back. I attended the last board meeting, and it was in my opinion that many members of the board voted a certain way for reasons that were anything but keeping our children or kids healthy. Reasons that, in my opinion, appear to be retaliation against the current governor, alleged fear of potential lawsuits, and strongly held political beliefs. Votes cast for all the wrong reasons that had nothing to do with masks, helping to stop spread of COVID-19 in our schools. In all the decisions I've made, I've tried to do the right thing by my grandpa and what I think that we would have wanted me to do. That's been my guiding principle. I did it for him. I don't know that my grandfather would have agreed with all the choices that I have made, but I know that he would have wanted me to do something. And sometimes desperate times calls for desperate measures. I did the things I did, and say the things I say because I care about our kids in our school. My prayer is that every member of the board can say the same thing besides, because I'm not quite convinced that is the case. So my question to the board is that what guides you to making decisions that you make? Are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you truly concerned with keeping kids safe from COVID, or are the other reasons behind, or are there other reasons behind your actions? I don't want to hear your answers. You know the truth, and that is between you and God. My ask is that you ponder that, and I will continue to pray for all you and the entire Southeast Polk family. Thank you, Jennifer Southcott. Anybody in the audience can change your mind? Okay. I'm going to read this statement from the board. I'd just like to take a minute to talk about the growing sense of division in our community that has resulted in name calling, harassment, and even minor vandalism. These troubling behaviors have to stop. This is not who we are as a community and not the example we want to set for our children. As adults, we need to be able to disagree without being hateful to each other. We are much better than this, and we are bigger than this. It's okay to disagree with things, and we should be able to say how we feel, but we should be able to show respect for each other during these sensitive topics. We are better together, and together we will ensure our students have a positive and safe place to learn. Thank you for your help and support. No other public comments. We'll go ahead and move on to,
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
thank you. Wait a second.
Second.
Any questions for administration? All right, hearing none. Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
All right, moving on to old and new business. 2A is the public hearing for Des Moines Water Works. Do you have a motion?
You have to open the public.
Oh, that's right, this is the public. Yeah, thank you. All right, so I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:35. If there's anybody that wishes to talk about this topic, you may do so. Mr. McConnell, have we received any written comments by chance? Yeah. Okay. A few minutes just in case. All right, it's 5:37. The public hearing is now closed. Uh, 2B, Des Moines Water Works easement agreement. Do I have a motion for that?
Motion to approve the easement with Des Moines Water Works for the installation of the water line infrastructure along Martha Miller Drive.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any questions for administration on this? Hearing none. Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
All right, item 3, topics for discussion. 3A is enrollment update. Mr. Wilson.
Obviously, we've been looking at enrollment for a number, a number of different meetings in a row here now. And the upside is, the good part is, we're looking at certified enrollment wrapping up here in the next week or so. And getting those things put together for the state. But in terms of just class sizes, things like that, lots of good news. Our average class size still in our elementary school still sits at 21. And then overall, we're currently, as of this morning, we're up 129 students from where we were at this time a year ago. Which again, I think that speaks well for the district, our communities, parents. It's kind of a really good indicator of health, I think. Any questions about any of this? Not a lot has changed since a couple weeks ago. We just have a few students fewer than we had a couple weeks ago, mostly because we learned that a handful of kids had yet to come to school. We sort of left them on the rolls for as long as we could. And then they're, over time, they're exited after 5 or 6 weeks of school.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, at Reynolds and Clay, Have you visited those classrooms to make sure things are working, or do they have extra aides in the classroom? Or given any thought to splitting any of those out? I'm just asking the question.
Sure, sure. Well, number one, I've been to every school. I haven't walked into these classrooms in particular, and I think you're probably talking about kindergarten.
Yep.
Okay. No, I have not walked into those classrooms specifically and haven't given much thought into splitting anything up, other than having conversations with the principals about how's it going, so on and so
Right.
forth.
Any feedback from the principals on those classrooms that are, higher numbered in
Right.
kindergarten?
No, not specifically.
Okay. No cries for help?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Part of it is, that's why people get paid,
Yeah.
to work, and sometimes it's tough. And I think, when in particular, I look at the Runnels kindergarten, and then I look at a year ago and go, yeah, last year was a tough year, but when you have 17, 18 kids a year ago, and then you move up to 25, 26 kids, there's an adjustment there that has to be made, but there are also inefficiencies that happen when we have these ultra small class sizes.
Mhm.
And if we go over, a little bit here or there, it can make up for some of those inefficiencies.
Just kind of keep an eye on those. You know that.
Sure.
We have this discussion every month, so.
You bet. You bet.
Any other questions for Mr. Polk?
So do we get the certified enrollment number? Does that come out by the next board meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And that's calculated differently than the
Yep.
enrollment we're seeing
Yep.
here. That includes the students that are open and rolled out. Is that right?
In the calculations, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
You bet.
3C, or B, yeah, thank you. Year-end financial report, Mr. Bertrand.
Thank you, board. Just coupling with this, with what Mr. Horton said, certified enrollment this year does drive budget for the FY 22-23 school year. So that's why it's so important for us. Mr. Kurt's going to run the presentation slides from here. I'll take questions during the presentation if you'd like to, but just real briefly, a year-end recap of what happened during the 2020-2021 school year. General fund, our revenues were $85.7 million, an increase of 9.2%. This was mainly due to the supplemental state aid increase of 2.3% for cost per pupil and an increase of enrollment of 97.8 students. That gave us $1.86 million of new money. We have valuation growth of 7.5% as well within the general fund piece. In addition to supplemental state aid growth and certified enrollment growth, we did receive about $2.4 million of federal funds for COVID. That came through. We had some Medicaid revenues that ran from last year, the FY 20 year into FY 21. So that's why that was inflated a little bit. Insurance reimbursement, our breakdown insurance program. In FY 20, we got about $226,000 back with our program. FY 21, we had about $500,000 back. Big chunk. We added HVAC to that, and Mr. Kurth and his team, through the workshop, through those repairs that we have for Chromebooks, really brought back those reimbursements to us. That's a real big piece for that program. That's an increase of about 118% for those reimbursements. So that's real good. Thank you, Mr. Kurth. General fund expenditures, 79.7 million total, an increase of 5.9%. Wages increased about 4.75%, the COVID effect, right? So COVID effect, what I'm referring to is kind of that substitution effect. Our increase in sub costs relative to FY 20, remember in FY 20, we closed schools down in March. It increased 87%, our sub costs did. Based on a normal year of about $1.3 million sub costs, FY 21, our sub costs were $1.7 million. So you can still kind of see that COVID effect of what happened and why we needed more subs because of COVID and within the classroom, outside the classroom, operational costs, et cetera. Again, when it comes to CARES money, we did spend some of that money this year. So the revenues that you see related to CARES, we don't treat those as revenues unless we have expenditures for those. So every dollar that we spend is revenues coming in for CARES funding. We don't record any more for revenue or any less for revenue. It's what it is as far as what we spend for expenditures. CARES money spent, just real briefly, a list of things, $1.2 million in mitigation supplies. 900,000 of that was in FY '21. We had a third-party disinfecting service come through last year, if you recall. We had 100-day subs at each one of our buildings. We installed bottle filling stations across the district in our school buildings. We paid some extra money for connectivity, hotspots, software, things like that, to where we can deliver instruction remotely for those students that want a remote. So all those things, and then also the COVID mitigation. As far as what types of expenditures within the general fund, you can kind of see the breakdown there. Really from last year, this year, the percentage is the same. Sorry, that's a little dark. 83% is really what we spend on wages and benefits, of which 75% of that is our wages. Remember, last year was the first year which we increased medical premiums. So that rate increase kind of took away that holiday of our 3-year flat fee that we had back then. 4.2% increase in dental. Utilities FY '21 up 30%. That was an increase in electricity mainly, a 24% increase in electricity.
Was that cost of electricity or was that?
Is increase in increase in whatever that is, it gigabytes or whatever that per unit cost was.
Because of weather or just because of the
It's
increased
a combination
cost?
of both, but there
Okay.
was an increase in rates for
Okay.
sure. Any questions regarding the general fund before I move on to all funds? All funds, our revenue was substantially more than it was last year, 208.4. 94.4 of that was the bond issuance, our general obligation bond increase. Without that bond issuance, we would have seen revenues increase 5.9%, so still going up. The valuation increase for all funds, not just the general fund, was 8.3%. And FY '21 was our first year where the PEPAL dollars increased from $1 to $1.67 on the tax rate. So we got additional funding for that, about $1.5 million. But temper those increases with some of the decreases we saw when it comes to student activities, donations, and things of that nature. We still saw an increase in overall revenues for all funds. As far as expenditures, this is where we record, the PEPAL fund is where we record a lot of our equipment when it comes to technology and anything over $500, as long as we have that budget. Total expenditures for FY '21, 113.9 and 10.4%. That should be increase.
I like decrease better though.
Yeah.
That's what
That
it
should be
says on
increased,
the
all right.
report.
Again, insurance premiums, additional cost due to bond issuance. We had the $94 million issuance bonds. 2.1 of that was issuance costs. So we paid 2.1 million to that. So let me go back to the bonds real quick. We approved $92 million of bond issuance. We issued only 85.3 million. We had about $8.7 million of premium come back to us. So we still have room to issue just close to $7 million of bonds to get to that 92 million. That net proceeds is about 92.4 million dollars of actual money we have for projects. Okay, just to make that distinction. Capital projects are in various phases right now. Classroom technology, we spent in FY '21, $1.6 million. Work continues over this summer and into this year. The multi-purpose stadium, we've spent $1.2 million the FY '21 year. The new middle school, including the land purchase, we spent $1.9 million for the middle schools thus far. And we have just a small class when it comes to softball field design and some land purchases. Now, land purchases, we have closed on all 3 other properties that we have now in this current fiscal year. That would be the Gladys and Easton Trust property, the Temple Holdings property, and also the Jacobs property, the 15 acres on the corner down the street here. So all those are closed for FY '22, the current school year. So in total, through FY '21, $7.1 million spent out of the capital projects, about $5 million towards projects, the rest through bond issuance costs and other land attorney type fees, things of that nature. All funds from a pie chart perspective, and the type of where we spend that money, personnel costs, get about 63%. As far as percentage for the year, that's a $4.6 million increase, 4.6% increase. We spent about $72.1 million from that. Much of the increase is due to capital projects, a slight increase in our property casualty insurance, worker comp insurance, and then the additional HVAC equipment breakdown insurance plan that we've engaged in for FY21. Other funds, real quickly, I touched on this briefly. Again, the self-insurance fund, we decided to kind of start rebuilding that fund after having that 3-year hiatus from a premium increase. That increase FY21 is 10.8%. Our current year increase is 3%. We built our fund balance up by $430,000, about $5 million. We spend $9.5 to $10 million in claims. So this is about a 6-month lag time or coverage for claims that go beyond a year, which is good. Dental insurance premiums up 4.2%, an additional $42,000 at the fund balance, and just under $200,000 on the total fund balance for dental. Financial indicators. Mr. Fisher, this being one of your last board meetings, I think one of the things that you take away from this is solvency ratios and unspent spending authority, right?
Yep, that's it.
So solvency ratios, CARES funding, again, has no impact on solvency ratio because the money we get is the money we spend, and that's all we account for. If you remember from FY21, we had limited tax rate for cash reserves just because we were sitting pretty high already with our cash reserve, with our solvency ratio. And then we had additional fund balance restrictions based on the state grants that we get that we didn't spend enough. So our carryover balances for those particular state categorical funds grew higher in FY21 than it did in FY20. So that's why our solvency ratio went down slightly here to 15.3%. Again, solvency ratio and unspent authority from an Iowa School Boards Association threshold, anything 5 to 15%, not more than 25% is the targeted range for a school district.
We're still above the recommendation.
We
We're
are
just getting
still
closer to that.
well within the
Goldilocks
range.
zone.
Correct.
Okay.
Unspent spending authority, this is the one that will get you in trouble if you're negative. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the legal authority to spend it, you can't spend it. We have been slowly building up our unspent spending authority. Now it's increased to 17.4%, which is great. CARES funding does affect unspent spending authority because it becomes a calculation of our miscellaneous revenues. If you want to know more about miscellaneous revenues, email me. I can give you a 1-hour lecture or lesson on miscellaneous revenues. We had miscellaneous revenues. We normally have it between $7 and $8 million. This year, we had a little over $11 million of miscellaneous revenues. And that's why our unspent spending authority has grown. Again, for authority wise, we spend what we spend when it comes to special education dollars. We had a deficit this year, if you recall, just like we have every year of $2.5 million. That increases our authority. Our extended beyond 5 years for spending in our limited English proficiency programs. That's part of the authority that we gain. And also certified enrollment changes that happened during the year. Again, on-time funding is not real in school district financing. We get funding for students this year, next year, but we get authority this year for the students that we have. In FY21, we actually went down in enrollment, but our open enrolled students that were counted initially, that's where we gained about $700,000 of authority. Next screen, thank you. Again, these things here is what we kind of talked about. The audit process is forthcoming. Obviously, these numbers are unaudited, but we generally are pretty on a target with these numbers when it comes to it, even after the audit process. With that, any questions from the board? Mr. Fisher?
Continue to seek authority from SBRC, that's school board.
Yes, I'm sorry, School Board Review Committee. School Budget Review Committee, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
School budget review committee. And when you say authority, what do you mean by that? Seek authority from them.
Oh, they have to grant that authority. They have to say yes or no to those increases. Some things are automatic, like our special education deficit.
Okay.
But some things we have to go to. So as we open up our new 6-7 building, we may go there for authority because there's going to be additional staffing, additional furniture, fixtures, and equipment that we may need to gain authority for.
Do you have a projection of where you think we'll be at for like furnishings, et cetera?
For the middle school,
Yeah, have you put pen to paper?
I've put ear to other districts around the area for a number, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I won't ask for that number right
Thank
now.
you.
I'll just,
I would say give yourself room. This is, I guess, for the current board members and candidates. I mean, somebody will be sitting in my chair. This goes back some time, but when I first got on the board, we had just built the new high school, all new furnishings. And we were in the process of doing a renovation of the old high school. And again, all new furnishings. And we were strapped. I mean, I'll just say that that's probably a major understatement. And I don't know if I knew enough then to have it all figured out. A board member who's since left told me that he thinks it was a missed shot on what we were expecting to spend on furnishings. That was part of the reason why we were in the shape we were in. So give yourself room, I mean, it's just like a house. If you furnish a house, it costs a lot of money, more than you can even imagine on some of that stuff, but
Room and time probably because of the delay in some of the things. Now I understand there's a delay in toner cartridges.
oh, I'm sure. So there's all that on top of it, but you want to give yourself room they're one-time expenses, but they come in one big chunk. They're expensive.
That is when you say one-time expenses, going back to when the high school play back in 2008, 2009, when they opened up, back in FY10, our solvency ratio at that point was a negative 19.1%.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's why we were cash strapped at that time.
we had no room at the end. Yeah, and it was quite trying. I mean, I know that there was some other acronym that you go to kind of cash flow yourself through the summer. So as you're waiting on revenue from the different entities, and I know we'd always use that fund to get us through. And there was one time we went, it was the proverbial, this window is closed.
Right.
Your needs are too great. And I kind of wondered too, if they didn't think, I don't know if they didn't think we were a good risk or what, but when that happened, it left us scrambling. I mean, we figured it out. I can't remember what we did, but you'd much rather be approaching these with these kinds of numbers. I know the solvency ratio has gone down. Well, you don't want that thing too big anyway.
Correct.
And that was planned. We knew where that was going.
Yes.
And I don't quite get it, never have in all this time, but unspent spending authority is the main driver. It's the credit card, I guess. It's nice to know you've got a credit card, I guess. You get you through but you can see where we were at before. Well, heck, yeah, even if you went, it's like you say, take that even back further and the line keeps going,
0.6%.
goes underneath. But yeah, so anyway, we worked hard to get to this position, and you want to make sure it's just like any financial position. You don't want your back up against the wall and making decisions. So
And that cash piece, the solvency ratio has indirect effect too, not only to be able to pay payroll and vendors during the summer, but also when it comes to when we got to get bonds, that interest rate, right? So a double A rating versus a double B rating is a
Negative, yeah,
big
credit.
difference. Ms. Slings might know something about
yeah,
that.
I do. A few things.
I can't imagine it. It'd be interesting to know the difference in ratings, what we were to what we were when we got to what we got to be able to go out for 92 million. We were shiny clean,
Mhm.
had a great rating, and where we were at before, I mean, I don't know if it'd be millions. It'd certainly be hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm sure. It might be millions on that kind of money.
Yeah, remember when we refinanced that sales tax revenue bond
Yeah.
back in 2016, 2017, we saved $8 million off the top. That's
Right.
part of what we
Yes,
have, yeah.
on our rating.
That's correct.
And then we just did a refinance in the last couple of years too, didn't we?
FY19.
And
we
it was
refinanced, yep.
excellent credit rating as
Correct.
well, which
Mhm.
saved us money.
All the decisions you've made, the community made as far as, gaining PEPAL dollars to be able to supplement things, the passing of the revenue purpose statement, all those things all help with what we're doing here from a finance standpoint, for sure. Any other questions today?
I guess, do you have any concerns when you look at this? I mean, the solvency ratio is down, but it's still above that range. Do you think that we're going to continue to trend down over the next few years, or?
Part of the reason why we kind of plateaued out at a solvency ratio because we had limited capacity to to issue cash reserve levy because of how high our solvency ratio
Need to
was.
spend that.
There's a calculation that's done within the budget process that says, okay, based on what you have as a fund balance, where you are solvency ratio, you can levy this many dollars. We went through a couple years where we couldn't levy hardly anything at all, a couple $100,000. So now we're in a spot where we overspend on special education. We have these deficits. We haven't been able to get all that money back because we just haven't been able to because of the limitations with the cash reserve levy. Now we have a little bit more room to get that cash back if we so choose to, but obviously with the board and what I look at is basically just managing that tax rate, right? Because everybody wants our tax rates to go flat or to go down. So we just want to make sure that's part of our thought process as well.
Right. We want to be financially stable, but not just sitting on a lot of extra
Correct.
cash.
Correct.
When is our last payment made on the high school?
Our debt is
Yeah,
done.
we're
This-
done.
What month did you make that final payment? Last year?
Don't remember.
Okay.
We should have had a party.
I think it was,
I'm just saying
I wanna
out
say it's
loud,
May.
publicly, the high school's paid for.
it is.
Yes.
Yeah, we got that done before we went out. and
For a bond
Went for
referendum.
92.
Yeah.
I want to say it was May, this past May.
This May.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is the amount, the percentage that we're spending on personnel costs, is that
In the
like,
general fund, yeah.
is that in a
That's-
good range right now?
That's
or-
a comparable, yeah, we're generally 82 to 84%, so at 83% we are.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay, and that's pretty sustainable at that
Yes.
level. Okay.
Well, as I recall, isn't that kind of like the state? I mean, we're in within the average too. It's not,
I don't remember who put that average out, but when I talked to amongst my colleagues, that's about where we're at. It's in the
Yeah.
low 80s. Yeah, this past year, FY20 was a little bit different just because of additional costs were burdensome, but we're in that spot. Yeah, in that range.
Anything else?
Fantastic job, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, bus bids too.
We just, with the bus bids, there is a big timing difference right now. The manufacturing of a bus is taking a lot longer than it has in the past. So we'd like to get the bids out early. For this coming up year, for buses to be delivered before school next year, we'd like to purchase 4 regular school buses and 2 of the larger 84 passenger buses. Mr. Schultz has also talked to me about picking up a couple other vans later on, but that won't be part of this bid. But we just want permission to go out from the board to go out to put these bids out in the street.
Anyone with air conditioning?
We do alternate air conditioning on those bids every year. So if you so choose to, these buses are getting a little higher as price.
Yeah.
We went from 3-4 buses prior to Pebble being passed to about 7 buses now.
Wow.
Down to 6 because the cost of buses have gone up quite a bit, but
But you'll get that as a bid alternate.
correct.
Okay,
We
thank
normally
you.
do. Mhm.
I suppose they're full of chips too. It's causing all the automakers slow production.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with you going out to bid.
Yeah, I think it's smart. See what they come back. Maybe it will say no thanks. I don't know,
And
but
we want to give them time to get them back in before school.
we're gonna need
starts.
them
Yeah.
probably pretty much no matter what they cost, unfortunately.
Is ahead of the curve.
So is this gonna put us ahead of where we need to be? Because I know we have,
The schedule.
Hmm.
A rolling schedule of bus
well,
replacement.
as we get into different routes with the 6-7 building as we're coming up, that's gonna change when we're needing more.
Yeah, good point. That's something we'll have to discuss later. Yeah, we'll have to
And
determine what
just in
kind of
general,
routes.
I mean, as far as, I guess, where are we sitting on buses for what we need to do? Because athletics go sometimes in, but we have to have routes going out.
Sure. And those activities are become a challenge. And you know what's even a bigger challenge is one of kind of our one-off trips. We have student here or there that need to be transferred or transported to a location that is just for them. So it's kind of in the middle of the day type deal. So that's where we might be getting vans more than buses to be able to transport that student. Those are certainly considerations for the 6-7 building as well going forward.
Yeah, just I want to make sure that we don't catch ourselves because that's going to change the whole dynamic. of
Sure.
Transportation.
In 23.
Yeah, and we've also had to use a third party for those one-offs as well.
Really?
Called Kids Zoom,
Mhm.
and it's pretty pricey. So that's why, and it's a combination of those one-offs and also having drivers available. The shortage of drivers across the state, across the nation, I think is something that will continue to be challenging for us and other school districts.
Yeah, and that's another topic for today, but obviously are our drivers, pay for drivers comparable to other districts? Or what we're,
Have we done a study, a comparison? I would say they're
I know we just
comparable, yeah.
have trouble getting people to work period nowadays, but
Yeah, I mean, and it's difficult because we have other metro area schools that also third party manage that out, right? So they compare
Yes.
those hourly rates to those companies and it's difficult, but I would say our hourly rate for employees that are employed by a school district, we're very comparable with the metro area.
yeah, I don't ever want to go to a third party. We lose a lot with that. And we've talked about that in the past. So don't bring that up again.
Well, it is interesting though to note, yeah, because they're just looking at probably that and not the cost of the benefit package.
Yeah.
Is that what your point is?
Yes and no. I think to Mr. President Handy's point, there is some advantages of keeping transportation in-house, but that's. for a
Oh,
different conversation.
absolutely. No, I would
We've got time
prefer,
if you want to talk about it. I'm
No,
just
I'm
saying.
good. Thank you.
no, I mean, we
only
had
6
that
o'clock.
discussion at
Yeah.
one time, way back when, and I'm
Yeah.
glad I want to control who those people are,
Yeah.
frankly. I want them working for us, not somebody else.
Certainly, and those companies like us are having the same kind of troubles and challenges with employing and keeping drivers on staff. So
And just as a reminder, if we were ever to do that, we lose the buses, right? And then we don't have control over how many buses we get.
We could never bring them all back online again.
Yeah.
yes and no, but I think there are arrangements school districts do use with those vendors, like they lease back from the school district, et cetera. But those, if we're not going to do it, there's no reason to talk about it right now.
That's right.
We've got too
I'm
much
trying to
need
remind
for
for
it.
it.
some Board members that may not have been here. that-
Yeah, no, it's good to know because yeah, they'll say, oh, well, you save all this money, but then you give control over it. And we've got a big fleet. I mean, we're not like some of these other schools that maybe they don't have that. I mean, we've got a lot of area to cover. I just think it's a necessary cost of doing school, as Joe used to say, at Southeast Polk. You know, that's the way we're geographically located, a community of communities. The bus is just part of, you just have to bite that bullet.
Expenses, yeah.
Well, I like those 84 passenger buses, having more of those on hand. They use them for routes, but those usually go to the athletics and stuff.
I think 2 are assigned to athletics right now, but I think the additional room does allow for some route combinations to occur.
And we're not getting rid of any buses right now. These are add-ons. These are not.
Phased out.
replacements.
I don't know. I guess I haven't talked to Mr. Schultz about that, but if there are old buses that are more costly to repair to get back on the road, I'm certainly those will probably go to auction. So if anybody wants to buy a bus in the future, they'll go to auction here.
Well, I
soon.
tell you, those buses that show up at our auction are used. I mean, used. Every little bit's been sapped out of them.
Ready for tailgate.
Yeah, there you go.
Any other questions from Mr. Bertrand on the buses?
Do you have your answer? Do you know it's okay to go out for bid?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
All right, 3D professional learning update.
Somehow I have the Partridge Family theme song playing in my head right now. Good evening, board. I'm here to visit with you about upcoming staff development. Our first, well, we had a district staff development day in pre-service, but our first one as the school year has started will be October 15th and a week from tomorrow. So before we get into that, I want to set a little context. As Kevin shared with the high school being paid off, there's been a lot of celebrations over the past 18 months that we really haven't had the opportunity to throw confetti on because everyone was so busy in managing all of the things of the pandemic, doing the best we could to teach kids in a safe environment. And it's been a very challenging 18 months, but it's been really rewarding to see our kids continue to learn and grow. So I'm going to repeat something that I've said here before. And in our professional learning, we have partnered with Solution Tree and committed to collaborative teams. And the board has been very supportive of that over the past 5, 6 years maybe, we have sent around 100 teachers each year to institutes either in St. Charles, Missouri or Minneapolis on PLCs or professional learning communities. And we know, I think, Brett, when you said better together, that we can do better as a team than we can individually. It's very complex work, and to be able to do that collaboratively, it is really a benefit. And our teachers have really committed to that, along with commitment from the school board, the administration, and our building leaders have committed to that as well. So of all years, in 2020, we were named a model professional learning community district. And that was really a big thing. There are 18 model PLC districts in the United States. And Southeast Polk is one of those. And I just want to reiterate that tonight, because our teacher teams and our principals have worked really hard to put that into place. And we took a minute and celebrated that, but I want to bring that back up again because it speaks to your commitment, it speaks to their commitment. And a lot of the things that happened last year were very challenging, but we had a team that we could work with in order to make it happen. And I think that was really vital. So that was a long introduction, but what I want to share with you is that as we look at our goals for the upcoming year, some of our goals are to focus on the core, obviously, learning recovery to close those gaps that occurred, to increase our use of data, and to recommit to our collaboration. So on October 15th, we are partnering with Solution Tree again. And since we have not been able to go to them, they will come to us. And we do have an event planned. If you want to hit that document, Mr. Kerr. This is what I would call a hybrid event, where the sessions that you see there will be streamed. And so these folks will not be live, but we selected sessions, and they have been tailored to Southeast Polk, that meet the goals that we have in our learning recovery plan. So we have Luis Cruz, who's going to be talking about embracing that RTI, or we call it MTSS process, as we move forward. Mike Matos will be presenting a session on how we can ensure equity and access through our curriculum. Nicole Dimich will talk about assessment and how important that is to increase student learning. And then we will finish the day with Mike Matos again, called Eating the Elephant. It's taking these ideas and how do we put them into action. So these folks will be streaming in. There is time built in between the sessions for our collaborative teams to reflect and decide what their next steps might be. We will also have 2 on-site associates. Tim Brown will be here. We have heard him speak many times at the Institutes, very engaging, done a lot of work with elementaries, won a lot of awards. And then Scott Carr will be the other on-site associate, and he has more of his experience at the secondary level. So in between sessions, while teams are collaborating and working together, Tim Brown and Scott Carr will be available to answer questions, provide feedback, and to provide guidance. We have a secondary job alike collaboration scheduled for the Wednesday following this on October 20th during our late start. And I shared that with Mr. Brown and Mr. Carr, and they have designed steps for teams to take in their next steps. So they have created some action documents. So when our teams get back together on October 20th, they'll have some clear plans and ideas for taking those ideas and moving them forward to support students. So we are very much looking forward. I know you probably have this on the handout again, and I also have way too many, so I'm trying to decrease those. So as we continue our commitment to professional learning communities and collaboration, and we thank you for supporting that commitment. I think we have a rich day of professional learning planned on October 15th that will help support our students and also meet the needs of our teachers who are looking forward to reconnecting with their collaborative teams and supporting students as we come through the pandemic.
This is an outstanding group you have coming to us by Zoom, but some of these I've read some of their things, and it just blows me away that we're gonna have this for our staff. That's fantastic. I mean, and to get them, I mean, you're really providing our staff with a lot of resources here, and so thank you for doing this. It's pretty powerful.
Thank you. I think it's going to be an engaging day, and I think that it's right what we need right at this time. So thank you, Mr. Powell.
Well, I guess we didn't get to do I guess I didn't realize that Solution Tree, I always knew that we've been doing this for years where they would go to these cities and do this.
Right.
I think it's good in any professional development to kind of get energized and, you get somewhere and get focused on your craft. And it sounds like we're kind of doing the same thing, but we're bringing it right to them.
Right.
So I think that's really neat. And Rick, I didn't know, but I mean, you apparently know these people. I mean, tell me something about Cruz, Matos, and
Well, it's just
Mitch or
their
you or
education. They just have a lot of educational research, and they have a lot of, they've been speaking for quite a while. I mean, this is the latest trends, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
The names just jumped out at me. That's the first thing I noticed, were these are the latest and greatest.
Yeah. Mike
Um,
Mattos is premier.
Yeah,
If we were to book him on site, which we're going to get the next best thing, we'll get that hybrid model. If we wanted him in 2 years, we probably should have started 6 months ago.
oh,
yeah.
But Dr. Halupnik and I had a chance, we had a Zoom meeting with him. The process for becoming a model PLC district was fairly rigorous, and we had to provide a lot of narrative and data. And then he interviewed us at the very end, but he is the premier name in making sure that all students are successful in
It's kind
school.
of like the Nick Saban. I mean, I
oh,
wasn't
sure.
expecting.
Yeah, well, that's,
You're right.
yeah,
I wasn't
that helps.
expecting these names. And if you were gonna send a group, you couldn't send everybody in this way.
Right.
Everybody has a chance, which, again, yeah, it would be nice to be in person, but the fact that everybody can listen, and then I like the idea that you give them time to collaborate, because sometimes you give them too much, then they don't have time to talk to each other. And it's like, you kind of lose the hype that day. You kind of have to give them time to talk and, hey, what did you get from that? I hope these folks, and I'm almost going to ask if I can attend, but I'm assuming they're going to send their handouts or something for our staff to have ahead of time.
They will
Yeah.
each get a swag bag with a book called Taking Action,
Yeah.
with the collaborative process, a binder, handouts, and a t-shirt.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And that's what you get if you go to the Institute. So it's kind of replicating that Institute, but in these days when we can't travel out
Right.
like that, they're using what we've learned about technology to replicate that experience as best we can.
Yeah.
And you brought up a good point. It is great to take teachers out and have that time and reflect. But we've had 2 years where we haven't been able to send
Right.
anyone. We have
Right.
2 years of new teachers and teachers who haven't had the opportunity to attend. So it's a wonderful opportunity to hear the message as a whole staff.
Right.
Well, I believe this helps in recruiting. I mean, if they know we're doing these kinds of things, that would be important to me if I was
Yeah.
a new teacher. What are they going to help me do to keep learning and improving? And we want the best. So hopefully things like this, the word gets out. We want to attract you here. We want to keep you here. We want the best.
I believe Mr. Horton says they ask if we have PLCs and they ask if we have coaches. So.
And here we got the dream team coming right to them
There
to
you go.
help them with all those,
Yeah.
sounds like. So that's great.
And we're one of 18 in the country.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is the one we send them up to Minneapolis. for?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
So back when you sent them, how many would you send?
We would send about 100.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot. but
it is a
still,
lot. Yeah.
Now they all can have that luxury.
Right, right. And the administrators would always go. And again, not everyone has had the chance, and people coach during the summer or have kids in events. And so this is a great opportunity to hear, process, and put into action ideas all together as a team.
Wonderful.
Any questions?
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Anything else for the good of the cause? Hearing none, we get an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Need a second?